Hello again, everybody. Todd Staruch, the horror nerd, here, reporting from Scares That Care Charity Weekend, number 5, Williamsburg, Virginia. I have the great honor of sitting here with the star of one of the most iconic genre movies of our time, Gremlins and Gremlins 2, Zach Galligan. Zach, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you so much for taking a few minutes with me.
Sure.
How has the show been for you so far?
So far, so good. I mean, it's Friday, which usually is a little slow, but it was actually quite busy, so I'm pretty happy.
So, does it ever surprise you that after so many years, I mean, we're chatting, 35 years,
Sure.
that fans are still so passionate about these films?
Yeah, I mean, at the time that we made them, I don't think I would have ever thought that they would have the staying power. I thought they would do well at the time, but the fact that they're sort of still loved and revered as classics and people watch them every Christmas, you know, like Die Hard and Gremlins and stuff like that, and Back to the Future still is just practically just as popular, if not more popular than when it came out. I think it's a testament to two things. One, they're just very well made and well crafted movies with good stories. And two, I think they just, those films kind of explore themes that resonate with people. And I guess finally, 3, now that I think about it, I think that, you know, they're very nostalgic. And I think a lot of people just, they came out at a good time in people's lives. So revisiting them kind of is a very nostalgic exercise for people.
Speaking strictly as a fan, I can vouch for that. So I lived for, you know, my 80s movies, and now my daughter, who's helping me this weekend, she's being introduced to all of them as well. So I get to see that get passed down to her. I
think there's a certain, almost, you could say, innocence to them in comparison to today's, you know, culture. There's a kind of sweetness and an innocence to them, which I think is what Stranger Things kind of tries to recreate and does a pretty good job of it. You know, it's like stuff that the whole family can watch, but by the same token, you know, there's like a little curse word thrown in here or there, so it's not completely G-rated, but it's fun and it's optimistic. The movies are optimistic. Back to the Future is optimistic. Gremlins is kind of like, Gremlins is a weird movie because it's both dark and light. But even at the end, with the kind of sad ending, there's the, you know, the idea of responsibility and following the rules. So it's got some positive messages to it. It's just good fun.
Speaking of the rules, I personally still struggle with the don't feed them after midnight thing, because isn't it always after midnight somewhere?
It is always after midnight, but we thought don't feed them between 2:10 and 4:26 in the morning would probably be a difficult rule for most people to remember.
Exactly. I am personally a big fan of the Hatchet series. Friends with Adam Green, and I enjoy that series. What was it like working on that type of a slasher film?
Well, that was a tremendous amount of fun. It was also very difficult at the same time because we shot it in the swamp down in New Orleans in June, and it was pretty hot, pretty muggy, pretty buggy, and pretty unpleasant conditions. Having said that, the people on the movie were some of the most fun and nicest and kindest and most enjoyable people that I've ever worked with. So I had a great time doing it and a miserable time doing it at the same time, just because the conditions were really, I mean, borderline brutal. But I'm very pleased with the way the movie came out. I think it looks very big and beautiful and nicely shot. And I think it's a fun entry in the series.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. You know, I like the Hatchet series for bringing back good old-fashioned slasher films.
Yep. Yeah, well, you know, Adam is a big fan of them and really put a lot of time and effort into the scripts and into the kills and into the, you know, into all the craftsmanship behind it, trying to hire as many good people as he could. And so the series works because it's kind of done with a lot of TLC, you know, it's a lot of appreciation for the genre.
Very true. Very true. I just want to touch briefly Star Trek Voyager. Had you Star Trek being the phenomenon that it is it something that you had always wanted to be a part of, or is it something that sort of just came up?
I'd always wanted to have something to do with Star Trek. I probably would have liked to maybe do a larger role, and in fact, I eventually tried out for a role on Enterprise for a regular, but obviously didn't get it. But it's still, considering that I only did one episode, the fact that I got to wear an ensign's outfit, have my sideburns shaved into a point, have my own phaser, get a Vulcan neck pinch, and beam up to the Voyager was pretty great, considering I'm only in the series for about 20 minutes.
That's very cool, and I'm officially jealous. I mean, 20 minutes or not, I am officially jealous.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I grew up watching Star Trek, the original, actually, when it was on TV, and certainly the reruns. And it's always very strange for me when I do things like do a convention with William Shatner, or, you know, see some of the original people from Next Generation and whatnot, because it's such an iconic show. It's arguably the most iconic science fiction show ever. So,
absolutely.
I just did a show in Birmingham, England, with Shatner, and just being on the same poster with him as the 10-year-old inside me was kind of freaking out. Pretty big.
That's awesome. My daughter and I just met him a couple of months ago at a convention, and I said, no, be in the photo op with me. You will appreciate it later on.
It's wise words from your father.
Just a couple things about this convention. I know you do fan conventions.
Sure.
What is it you like about them, and what is it about Scares That Care that brought you down here this weekend?
Well, it's always nice to get back to the community and do something that's charitable. That's always, feels good. As far as doing conventions, I really learn a lot about how some of the stuff that I've done has impacted people, which I find amazing sometimes, because to me it's just like, oh, I did that movie and it was just a job. And then other people will come up to you and say, I watched that movie 50 times and it helped me through my divorce, or it got me through a difficult period in my life. And you're like, it makes you realize that when you are a creator or a participant in making entertainment, that the entertainment actually really has a legitimate impact on other people's lives in a positive way. And that makes you feel really good as an entertainer, to feel like you're actually doing something positive for other people's lives, and taking them away from the current world and allowing them to go into a different world. So it's very gratifying. And it's I've learned all sorts of stories and things that I would never have known had I not done these conventions.
What's the weirdest thing anyone ever asked you to sign?
I've had people ask me to sign their body, and then they've gone out and come back the next day and they've tattooed the signature on them, which is a level of dedication I can't really imagine. But 'cause I don't have any tattoos.
I actually hear that one a lot.
Yeah, and so it's always interesting when people want you to sign their flesh.
Fair enough. Lastly, Zach, share with the fans, what are you up to these days? Are you working on anything new? What have you got going on?
Yeah, I just finished a movie called Preacher 6, which is kind of like a grindhouse kind of movie with angels and demons kind of taking each other on, but it's like people don't know that we're angels and demons living in the world, stuff like that. Kind of like the Paul Bettany movie Legion that they did.
Ah, yes.
Sort of like that, but on a much lower scale. And then I also did a couple of small parts in the new Jason Mewes, Kevin Smith movie that's coming out, Madness in the Method. So that's the more comedic side of it. So those two things would be things to watch for in the next year. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Well, Zach, thank you so much for taking a few minutes with me. I truly appreciate it. And have a great rest of the convention weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Zach Galligan from Gremlins, and we'll see you all in the next interview.